right, what's going on, guys? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is King Wabi, and presenting to you on behalf of Because Bitcoin, another segment of Crypto World Radio. And today I'm joined by our special guest, Crypto Shadow, who's been an active follow of mine for the last few years, and spoke with him for the first time yesterday over the phone. And honestly, one of the brightest minds in the space. And I would put him up. I would put him right up there with Trader XO. And just a reminder, if you're listening to us from YouTube and you enjoy content like this, be sure to like, comment any feedback, turn on bell notifications, and go ahead and subscribe to us so you can be consistently fed updates with our various media Monday through Friday. And yeah, brother, it's good to have you on, man. This is the last show for the year, and what a way, what a way to finish it off by having you on here, brother. How are you today, brother?
Thank you very much for hosting me on this space today. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. It's a nice time to do it because we're right at the cusp of a new year. So hopefully we can exchange some stuff today as well, just in general, whatever we're talking about that maybe can be helpful next year. Maybe put it in context. It's a good time to be talking.
Brother, so let me ask you, man, how did you come across Bitcoin and crypto? How did you come across it? And how did you navigate through the market? I know through your various posts, you take the approach of really psychological and really tactical with the way you've moved this year.
Yeah, so I've told this story quite a few times. I'll say it again. The psychological aspect is really because of my roots, and I'm very, very grateful that that was the first, let's just say, route that I took into the game. That's primarily because, as you know, as much as we say that this is a game of information asymmetry, right? So your life is made heavily easier, a lot easier, based on what you know, what kind of edge you can design, and how early you know it. It's definitely all useless unless you can control yourself from a risk perspective, from an expectation perspective. So that is really why I take a psychological approach, or why I'm happy that that was my roots. So to explain how I got into the game, it's very, very simple. I'm about 30 years old now. I turned 30 in a few days. I was very young, around 23. I was meditating because I was training to be a monk. At that age, I haven't really connected too much in the world. I've been doing odd jobs here and there. Materialism as a way of life hasn't really interested me that much. It interests me much more these days, but at that point, I don't really like the idea of competing with the world for just useless chips, right? So I thought, well, there's only really one way for me to go, and that's to train properly in the spiritual life. I'm not talking about waving a few bits of incense around and whatever. Spend significant time training, and that was over quite a few years. So that was actually prior to 23, 24. It was from the age of around 19 all the way to 21, 22. I get the dates wrong, but I've been training, in fact, since I was 18, 19. And the first intention was to become a monk. And so that was ongoing for a long time. And I was working at a restaurant, right? I was a food delivery driver and just helping at the restaurant. And I was at home. I had a friend come around. He sat me down, and he was like, "Brother," I was like, "What's up?" He's like, "I have to tell you something." And I said, "Well, what's good?" He seemed pretty nervous, and he said, "Oh, I've come across a lot of money, and I've done this thing, and now I have so much money, and I don't know what to do with it." And it was a shock to me and him, more to me because we were of the spiritual life to quite a high degree. So money wasn't something that came to us much. Yeah, I mean, even back in those days, if I had 200-300 coming in a month, a week, I was happy. So when he told me he had amassed a significant amount of cash, he didn't tell me what it was in. He just said, "Oh, it was in something called cryptocurrency." I was like, "All right, cool, fair enough." Turns out It was an early investment in either the ETH ICO or Ethereum at an early price. I can't remember which one it was. It was such a long time ago, but it was a significant buy at a significant price, and it was with a good volume. So anyway, I was like, all right, well, whatever. Went back to my job, was doing my stuff. Guy was coming in. Coincidentally, one of the guys we work with was playing demo on his phone. I don't know what it was, trading 212 or whatever, the normal shitty brokers. He was experimenting with demo. He ran, I think, a $5,000 account on demo up to around 50,000. Had no idea what he was doing, mind you. I looked at it and I thought, oh, wow, what is this? Da, 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 da. Piquing my interest, piquing my interest, piquing my interest. He comes in later and says he's lost it all, obviously, after trying on a real account. And then I thought, well, this stuff's really interesting. So I downloaded GDAX at the time, or Coinbase for guys that weren't around then. And I just pumped a bit of money in and was trying to trade Ethereum based on just the order book. I don't know if any of you guys remember GDAX, but the order book used to be a vertical stacked order book, and on one side it would move red, on the other side it would move green. And so I used to think that was how you trade it, which fair enough, it can be if you're a scalper, right? So anyway, let's fast forward. From here, it's time for me to go into spiritual retreat. So I left my job. I left what I was doing. I think I bought Ethereum at a certain price and I left. I was in the forest for 2 months, training my mind on some level. I never wanted to leave that place, but I had to. Spend 2 months there, pure solitary, no electricity, no people, nothing. I think I had 3 books, some food, and a cooker, and that was basically it. So I spent that time there. Upon resolution of the retreat, the instructions I received just from wherever they came from, was that the reason why I was unable to rest and uneasy and to a certain level go deeper into meditation was the fact that I was relying on my parents for a significant amount of money compared to what I was bringing in, number one. And number two was there was an uneasiness that I wasn't leaning on my own spine in the world. And three, I basically discovered that I wasn't really owning the part of me that was running away from materialism. So a lot of people do this. They believe that for some reason running away and judging material life is somehow some kind of spiritual move, and it's not, right? It's not. We're material creatures. That's the truth about it. So what I did was went the complete opposite route. Came home, followed the instructions I'd received, sat down with a computer, borrowed everything around £1,000 from my father, and just, I don't even remember how long it was, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours a day, just studying. There was nothing that threw me off my I would say mental balance, like those first 2, 3, 4 months of trading. In fact, I would say it was quite disturbing because I went from being relatively calm and relatively what's it called, in having some sense of inherent equanimity to being a bit of a wreck. I mean, my sleeping times were all over the place. My mind was being tested, but I never left it alone after that. Especially when I came back from that retreat as well and figured out that my Ethereum position had doubled, and also figured out that the money that my friend had made was from Ethereum. So I started digging in, and the rest is pretty much history after, of course, a lot of stress and a lot of struggle. So that's really the start of it all. And I didn't really get into trading Bitcoin significantly after that period. I was mainly interested in altcoins. And in general, I still am from an investment perspective, even though it's just a steaming pile of shit, right? It's got nothing. It's a hot air balloon, but it's a hot air balloon that I'm still interested in. So yeah, that will cover it up.
Brother, I definitely agree with you that having something outside of being this asset class in regards to physicality is very important. This market requires not only does it require such acute and precise detail to all the moves that you're doing, but you also need to be fast paced and have that like high adrenaline, hyper focused sort of mentality. And I think definitely training your body to its absolute limits in some capacity, any way that you can, does help with that. It truly does, man. You'll have these moments, even if you're not a trader, more of like a macro swing player like myself, you know, being in situations like me and you had talked about last night, you know,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
you're you're talking like, you know, even in a bull market, you'll have 35-40% swings in any position, right? To the downside or the upside. And, you know, in those moments you have to be pretty quick. So
yeah, yeah.
that's definitely important, brother. And you know, one thing that I'd like to learn from you, brother, is how do you think this last cycle moved in comparison to the 2017 cycle? You know, like we described last night, I came in towards the tail end of 2017, like December,
Yeah,
so I never
yeah.
got to experience, like, you know, I know that situation that you described with Verge,
Hmm.
like that 50-40% swing, that didn't really happen as much in 2020,
Okay.
2021.
Yeah, yeah. Happily expand on that. Those are some of the, well, excuse me, those are some of the craziest times in my life, but also in the markets that I've ever seen. So I don't know. A lot of the listeners here were probably here during 2017, and it was more of a mania than I can describe. Number one, this may be because I was relatively newer to the game. Therefore, the people I was also associated with and hanging around with were of this nature. But I don't think that describes it very well. Telegram, first and foremost, was a cesspit. People had no concept of where they were throwing their money, and stuff was pumping left, right, and center. If you thought the last bull market or the recent bull market was mad, you have no concept of what it was like in 2017. Things were, well, we didn't know what anything really did unless you'd been in the space since 2014. We had uh, things pumping 100, 200, 300x, far, far more gains than we'd seen this cycle, apart from things like AXS. It was easier and it was more common. We had stuff like, I remember Einsteinium. So this was the cycle where a partnership or a logo change could pump something 3 or 4x within a single candle. That's the kind of knowledge rank that we're talking about, right? So the reason I highlighted that number one was because of its hilarity. Yeah, I'll never forget that story. I'm always quoting it to this day. Einsteinium, I don't know if any of you remember that project. I think it was an AI project or some kind of project. I didn't know what it did. I just remember subscribing to the narrative. I remember being on Bittrex, and their entire team was hyping up this coin, this big announcement, and they were making an announcement of an announcement of an announcement. Everyone knows the game at that point, and people were getting more and more hyped because everyone's like, "What is this big announcement? You know, what is it?" And the final reveal, right? I was just killing myself. I think they released a new logo, and and leading up to the pump for this announcement, it had done I think 5 or 6x. I logged into Bittrex. I think 30 seconds before they released the announcement. The second they released it, I sold everything. I just saw a massive red candle. People were on Twitter, on Telegram, and it was just hundreds of people going, "Sir, what is happening with price?" You know, the typical funny caricature that we paint about people. But that was a more real thing back then for me and in general. People, I find, as these market cycles are getting more and more and more, because obviously liquidity is increasing, we have to find better edges in the market in order to make money. Whereas back then, I think it was a little bit easier. The more the space matures, the more narratives we need. And in general, I think, at least for me, people are a little bit more clued up each cycle as it goes on. Now, of course, you do have newbies that enter into each cycle. I understand that, but it feels to me in general the standard is bumping up every cycle because it's getting more and more competitive, right? Especially also if you look at the chart, right? I'm not just talking about from a sentiment perspective or just a conceptual side. Of course, it's going to get more competitive because you look at the chart, it's going to give less returns over time. It's going to squash itself as liquidity comes into the market. So that's really been my experience of the 2017 cycle. In this cycle, it's been similar in terms of the narrative side. So narratives are essentially what moves coins in this space because everything is overvalued anyway. But it happens to I would say, a more, I wouldn't say complex degree now, but it's just a bit more mature in the way that it works. I don't think a metaverse coin can do an announcement of an announcement and release a logo and something can 2-3x. It's not going to be that type of market the last time round, and I think the next time round is going to mature even more. So that's probably the clearest thing I can give you in terms of differences.
Speaking of rebrands and logos, I remember when Matic rebranded to Polygon and had a new logo. The thing that struck me odd is, where have I seen this before, right?
Oh,
And
okay, yeah, yeah.
and even though I did not partake for the majority of the 2016-2017 cycle, I do remember that right around the summer of 2017, AntShares had rebranded to Neo
I
and
remember
went through
that.
this
Yeah,
whole revamp, and I'm like, wow, this is probably going to turn out the same way.
yeah.
And earlier before that, there was this token that was called Republic Protocol, and it rebranded to Ren. And I remember playing Ren throughout DeFi summer, and I'm like, wow, even though like you might not have an exact replica of the prior cycle, you will
Mhm.
hear echoes. It'll sort of be sort of like an echo from the last cycle. So it wouldn't shock me if something that ran up this prior cycle were to do that, just to capture that attention. And brother, so what do you look for as far as positions in the bottom of a cycle? Like, do you look for narratives? Do you look for like team members in a team? What is it that you look for when you're gauging a macro play for upside?
It's very, very simple. So the first thing is to look for asymmetry, right? So just first, obviously, with anything we invest in or buy, I think just as traders or investors, you want to look for risk to reward. Okay, so obviously that's the first thing. But if we're going to talk about specificity, I want to see basically something at an area which is basically a logical discount, right? So it's a principle based application to scouting from a project. So what I first want to see is, or I want to make an assumption that we're going to have another cycle. That's the first thing. And at that point, crypto functions like an option. So let's say we've moved from 63,000 all the way down to where we are right now, which is the 16, 17K range, right? At the moment, we can do a minus 50% from where we are, which will take us down to just under 9,000, right? That's clear. It's possible, whatever. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. But at this point, right now, I have to weigh up what the decisions I make are. So if I look at the market, if I were to commit capital right here into the game as a whole, it's just like an option, right? And the option is either crypto goes to zero or it doesn't, right? And if it doesn't, it's very likely that any capital employed here is going to do X multiplier comparative to a few different things. So that's the first thing. The first thing I want to look at is I don't want to try and time the bottom. I'm not interested in that. When asymmetry arrives in terms of risk to reward, I want to start at least applying capital. First main point. Then after that, we need to understand what drives money, money allocation in this space. And a lot of it is not logical. A lot of it is narrative based. And the narratives go on what could be valuable in the future, who is the best team, and where is money already invested or being applied behind the scenes, right? So typically what I'll look for during this period, which is the first point I made, right? A logical place of discount where crypto functions like an option. Second thing I'll ask myself is, all right, well, what are the most explosive plays possible? What are the narratives that catch the most fire? And I will say, okay, let's say, for example, metaverse at the moment. Let's say that that's going to catch. I think that's going to catch fire. Then I will look for the. I'm going to look for the cream of the crop within that sector. So when I say cream of the crop, I'm looking for things that are diverging against price and market cap. So let's say I locate a project that is 10 million, right? It's very, very low market cap. The team is consistently building. The community is very big. The narrative is big or bigger or explosive in itself. It is fresh. It doesn't have that much capital applied to it, and it already has not had a cycle, right? So its chart is fresh. So there is no overhanging supply. A combination of these factors would allow me to believe it has even more asymmetry. Yeah, so we're saying the market functions with high risk to reward, and then we're looking for a project that has a high narrative, with a very large community, good branding, a good team, and a fresh chart because it has no overhanging supply. Right. So that is, I'm very clear on that. And then the thing is from there to just nail it down into the best opportunities and spread money around them equally in order to capture, in order to be early really and capture the profits of a run on those coins. But it's very important for me. I think the best ones are ones that have not had market cycles or too tough of a market cycle previously, because even if it is a low market cap, if the hype is blown out, okay? So if people have been invested in the coin and the coin has failed, or the community has, they're bullish on Twitter, but really what they're doing is waiting to sell their bags, I'm not interested. I'm not really interested. Unless the project itself is fundamentally diverging so much that it inspires new capital, right? So I'm really just looking for why people put their money in things, which is not really a mature approach in this market. It's not. Whilst we might think it is, it can't be a mature approach because it's grossly overvalued. Take a look at coin market cap. The majority of the stuff on there, it could easily go another 99% and it'd still be overvalued, right? So I'm not really interested in looking for a core value approach in the traditional sense where, X has X utility, that means it's worth this. I'm looking for, all right, where are the majority going to be FOMOing into once the market picks back up, if it does? And that has to be a narrative that is an emotional one, yeah, because people, I think, especially more in this market, think with their emotion. They do not think with ration. Those who think with ration are the ones accumulating early, and those can be found by following larger funds, which, by the way, are not always right. I'm not saying they're right. There's so many got wrecked recently, but by following narratives that larger funds are also following. This could be either hedge funds, it could be VCs or whatever. The guys that have a lot of capital and are public about their narrative. If that narrative then fits my own criteria, and I have perhaps evidence that they will support it via communal effort or via core liquidity, right? And the chart is looking as if, all right, it's either an accumulation or it's broken out into a new market structure. When those 3 or 4 areas align, then I'll be looking to or add risk or add more risk than perhaps I've done previously, depending on where in that chain we are. That's as clear as an answer as I can give, and I think that was succinct.
Brother, I do want to also point out to the audience is that you're actually one of the few people here on crypto Twitter that have always looked at things like the NASDAQ. And over here at Because Bitcoin, that's one thing that we focus on more than anything before we execute any sort of major macro plays in the cryptocurrency market. So when you got into the market, were you also looking at equities, or is
No,
this?
no, sorry. Please
Oh no,
continue.
yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say, like, or is this something that you came across like more towards like 2018 or 2019?
Actually, yeah. So equities, and commodities and the metals markets and stuff like that, I was not interested or looking at that until I was forced to do so. And what's become clear over the past 2 years is BTC has started to correlate to the VIX, which is the volatility of the S&P and the Nasdaq, and yeah. So when the BTC started more severely correlating with those markets, then I started to pay attention to them, which was probably, I would say, 2021. I didn't feel the need to pay attention to it before, because in general, the correlation, at least to my knowledge, wasn't so relevant. I was able to use just the chart as it is, and I think to a certain extent, because one chart is the reflection, it can be, if you look at it in one way, the reflection of many other charts. You still don't need to look at it corely from a macro perspective. You can just use the chart, but I think it's more useful to do so now. So I didn't really look at that stuff until I was forced to look at it, but it's very helpful for sure.
And what's crazy, man, is that we were talking about certain assets last night that have a lot of overhead risk, and how
Mm-hmm.
it's best to look at fresh charts, right? And one thing that we had pointed out was some of our fan favorite tokens like Solana are more than likely following the same trajectory as Neo, right? Pardon me. Scam likely just called, so I might have cut off there. Uh,
I think his phone is cut out, so just wait till he's back.
Yeah, apologies, everybody. We're getting him back up here.
hey guys, am I able to be heard? Am I here?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that, man. One of those scam likely calls came in and it completely booted me off. I think I might have triggered the unholy word of Solana, and my Solana phone just booted me off the Twitter space. Um, but anyways, man, I was talking about Solana is quickly on the trajectory of going along the same path as prior cycle tokens like Neo, where despite its massive run up and its community engagement, all those things, there are some fundamental things that happen within the system during pivotal times in the market that there's just no coming back. So despite the potential for an echo bubble, I just don't think you're able to recover from that, given the amount of capital that's tied in from VC firms, and you still have major tokens that are locked up that are going to be unvested in Q4 of next year and Q1 of 24. So I definitely agree that you know it's best to avoid those those tailwinds and best look at a fresh chart. And one thing that the crypto market does have in common with each cycle is that there's always some sort of similarities that transpire to the next cycle in regards to what occurs during the later half of the prior cycle. So I know we were discussing how, you know, in late 2017, you had all the quote unquote ETH killers, right? Branded as layer ones. And those were the things that picked up for the majority of the 2020, 2021 cycle. And from what we've seen during the last cycle, right, towards the end, you had things like metaverse and NFTs kick off towards the end. So for yourself, right? I know it's a bit early to talk about these things, but for yourself, do you see a narrative like that kicking off for the next cycle? Given that, like, I know you're working on some stuff on more of like the dev and build side when it pertains to that.
Yeah, honestly, the hottest narratives around at the moment, they're clearly metaverse, DeFi, I think L2 based, and aside from that, just general decentralization. If we're looking at the whole, you mentioned about Solana and FTX, it's made a ripple effect in people's minds that they the centralized exchanges, while CZ is doing very well, they're still on some level quite tough to trust. And I think there is a massive, massive play coming for decentralized exchanges. That has been a play that has been in formation since 2017, 2018. I remember people telling me about them. I remember we were talking earlier on yesterday about Uniswap and how about you knew Uniswap from the earlier days, but we were even talking about Atomic Swap, which was I think late 2018 or early 2018, and in general that whole narrative is starting to come to fruition, but it's only starting to come to fruition now. So I would say, yeah, decentralized exchanges number one, and all the other ones that I mentioned, metaverse. NFTs are going to be massive too. I think they're going to be massive, both from two perspectives. One, there is likely to be another, if we get another cycle, or we at least get a period of multi-year ranging. I think, people speculate also based on who's first, yeah? And if the current NFTs gain attention, and the NFTs I'm referring to are collectibles, they will have a mini bubble themselves, and they may be able to form their own market. But again, that's only in the circumstance that the protocols they're on and traded with go through a ranging or bull market period. And the second is utility-based NFTs. I think they're also going to have a massive run of their own, but it will be a different type. It's more difficult to speculate with those at a very uninformed level. More, I think it will manifest in a different way, which I can get into after if any of you guys are interested. But yeah, those are definitely the narratives I see unfolding. And was there another question you had there, or was that the question that you asked?
Yeah, in general, man, and also like I know you're trying to you're trying to do something on more of like the developer side of things, and I was interested to know your thoughts on like, you know, towards the end of the last cycle, we had things that, we're trying to build AAA games, but they never really caught off, and they really just became ploys to farm ETH or to farm their tokens, right? And
Yeah.
something that I've been seeing recently, as far as like the NFT and GameFi space, is that a lot of individuals that have more experience in the esports side of things, they're trying to port over. They're trying to port over systems like World of Warcraft into the system. Not so much, right, to like shill tokens, like buy my token so I can get rich, but more so like to sort of build a crypto based ecosystem, where it incentivizes individuals to partake in the digital economy to get salaries in BTC or ETH or more like USDC. You know what I mean? So do you see this space eventually like trickling down to like like a Fortnite tournament or like more of the esports side of things? Because I think that would be like some pretty cool game theory. And with yourself, someone that specializes in that realm, I'd love to get your thoughts on that, brother.
So interesting. That's such an interesting question. And I think to a certain degree that's going to occur. So, number one, I think I subscribe to a narrative that Animoca Brands has been promoting quite a lot in their thesis as to why they're committing capital in the markets. And that's really that, okay, so games at the moment, right? If you look at For example, you said World of Warcraft. Someone else might say Call of Duty. It could be any game. These games at the moment function on this model. They put the game up, they make people pay for the game, and then the people come into the game and they don't work, sorry, but they interact with the game. They uphold the network, right? So Call of Duty is only Call of Duty because of its millions of players. World of Warcraft is only World of Warcraft because of its millions of players. Now, this is fine. This is fine as a closed system. But what happens when a new game introduces a way to transform gaming into a form of paid labor, right? So if you look at World of Warcraft, it doesn't reward its players for the fact that they uphold the entire network. Without them, it's not possible to have a World of Warcraft. Of course, it's a game made by the developers or whatever, but they're not getting paid to play it. They're not getting paid for their time. And I think it absolutely, when there is a crypt, there's going to be, because it's such a massive black hole in the market, when someone integrates a way to earn money by playing a game, it's just going to cause an avalanche. I think there is a space to turn time into time spent in multiverse games and MMORPGs and things like that into an economy, right? Into economy, especially where we're heading as a whole, especially where humanity is heading. I think that's definitely going to take off. I don't know how long it will take. It may take X amount of time, but certainly, yeah, when the network starts to reward users for gaming and creates an internal economy, absolutely. The second bit is that I think humanity at some point is going to get gamified anyway. Yeah, if you look at NFTs, with NFTs we have the ability to represent not only physical goods, but we have the idea that we can verify online goods through a token, and it opens up a significant area where people can represent what they have in a metaverse and gain clout for it. So people really go where they find value, and value could be earning money from a game, but it could also be trying to get X clout token to share off online, and which we see at the moment in PFPs. But that's just the start of it, right? That's just the start of it. So I do think there is absolutely something huge unfolding there. It's just a question of technology at this point, and how long it takes everyone to get on board. But yeah, I think that's the case.
There's also a case to be made as far as social capital is concerned. These projects that are developing more of like on the stealth background when it pertains to GameFi and quote unquote the metaverse, they shouldn't be competing for the attention of like, oh, I'm building on Solana. I need attention from like the Ethereum crowd, the Avalanche crowd. They're competing with the eyes that are on World of Warcraft, on Fortnite, on Valor, right? They're competing with that crowd. And that's one of the things that have been brought up on more of like the build side of things, is that there's this narrative going around that a chain maxi war, like AVAX versus Sol, ETH versus Sol, right? And it shouldn't have to be like that, because in reality, you're competing for the attention of the guy who works 12 hours a day and comes home, wants to play Call of Duty, right? Like, what is being built right now to attract that attention, to go ahead and play some farm game like Axie Infinity, right? Which, I mean, it worked for some time, but obviously that system is flawed. So I think moving forward, these games actually have to be attractive. They can't just have a promise of a token. I think that's where people get confused. And then the aspect of bridging hardware into software, that's a whole nother ordeal, right? So at some point, I do think there's going to be an integration with something like the Oculus, right? With what Meta's doing. Do you think that is something that can ignite the sort of quote unquote next leg up? And what I mean by that is, if you look at 2020, right? It wasn't until like PayPal announced that, hey, we have more options for payments, right? You can get Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and things of that nature. And then, of course, you had like the huge marketing campaign from Jack Dorsey, who was pretty much tweeting about Bitcoin every single day. And then you have guys like Michael Saylor, right, and Elon talking about buying Bitcoin. So you have all of these things happen within the same quarter. Do you think that this is a narrative that can potentially kick off where you do have something like Meta, right, or even Google, or perhaps another company that comes out and says, hey, we're building this product that can be integrated with quote unquote Web3 and metaverse? And I know that term makes people's ears bleed out. It's absolutely sickening, right? It's like saying that you're a Disney adult and you're proud of it, right? So, um, what are your thoughts on that, brother? Do you think at some point there's going to be a hardware component to this asset class? And I know that there have been some absolutely dog shit projects that have tried to do this before. But before that, Shadow, do you see someone with their hand up? Because like I do see somebody, but it says connecting.
Yeah, I see someone with their hand up. Yeah, it's I think a guy called Bishar.
Oh, Bashara, can you say something, brother? I don't see you as a speaker.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sounds good.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is he?
Can you
Is
hear
he
me?
speaking, Shadow?
Yeah, he's talking. He's talking. Yeah.
Okay. I'm
All
gonna
right.
have to drop. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
drop down and come back up. Okay. I'm not able
No
to
problem.
hear him.
No problem. You can go ahead and answer, Shadow. You can go ahead and answer, Wabi,
Cool.
and we'll get back to my question.
So I'll wait till Wabi's reconnected, and then I'll answer the question. If you want to ask a question while we're waiting for him to get back in, by all means do that too.
Yeah, definitely. My question is very specific. Actually, you mentioned utility NFTs, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever they are, whatever they do, but they're pure utility NFTs. So my question is, how do you, for these ones, like what are the KPIs or indicators or
Hey
that you
guys, you able to
track
hear
for?
me?
Yes,
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm back
that you
now.
track
I'm
for.
back now. Sorry about that, guys. Twitter Spaces sometimes has these clunky issues. It seems that anytime Solana is being brought up during a space, these things do tend to happen. So, excuse the interruption, guys. Excuse the interruption.
Wabi, can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, you're good. You're good, brother. What's going on, man? What's going on? Shadow, we can pick up where we left off, or maybe we can hold it and let Bashara um, ask us a question.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I'll answer Bishar's question first because it's more poignant, and then I can get back to what you were asking. So if Bishar, you want to come in and finish your question, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely. So my question is very specific about niche, the utility NFTs, right? How do you track? What KPIs do you track? To determine if it's in the cycle or what time frame are we in the cycle for that utility NFT?
Yeah. So basically, with utility NFTs, I don't really think it's quite time for them yet. Primarily because sentiment is really the indicator that I track, and really just broad knowledge among influencers, YouTube accounts, and narrative in general. That narrative about utility-based NFTs is starting to arise, but as a core system, I don't have it yet for utility-based NFTs. I'm just on the lookout for projects that will offer that. The reason being is because let's say, for example, I've talked about this in a different interview, but let's say that you have an artist, for example, right? You have an artist, and X artist is a fantastic artist, but he doesn't want to go into the recording industry to get funded by basically renting out his arse on a contract. So he says, all right, well, I'm going to do an NFT, and basically this NFT is going to act as two things. It's going to act as a cloud pass, and it's going to act as a way to, I don't know, see me backstage permanently for one concert a year for the rest of my career plus other stuff. And basically what would happen is if that artist essentially blows up, he's achieved two things. Number one, he's contract free, and number two, the owner of the NFT essentially is glorified because they now have a clout token that gets them very close to this individual that they can represent. But secondarily, it's also something that pays them asymmetrically over time based on what they paid for it. And third, it also goes up dramatically in price because of exactly what it represents as something with palpable value. So in terms of KPIs and stuff like that, you know, the only thing I have to watch is what other people are clocking onto. And that's it for now. That's it. I can't give you anything more specific than that.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man.
No problem. And so if I get back onto the question, could you repeat the question for me?
Yeah, so
I can't remember the exact ending.
I'll put it more concise. Do you see like a hardware component coming in for the next cycle to sort of kick off that last leg, right? And it doesn't really take much to kick off said leg, given, you know, we saw what happened in Q4 of 2020. All it took was, you know, PayPal and Tesla and MicroStrategy to announce, hey, you know, we're getting into this asset class. We're buying some BTC and we're going to offer these payment options to our clients.
Got it. I honestly think that narrative is staring right in front of us, and I think that narrative is here in the form of Twitter. It is, to answer your question more specifically, I will get into the Oculus side of things in a second, but certainly, we have one of the richest men in the world with the biggest social platforms in the world loves a meme coin. Okay, not to say he doesn't have a conflict of interest, but he loves a meme coin, is hinting that he's going to integrate crypto into Twitter, is a fan of free speech. Twitter is integrating NFTs into their platform. They have they have a coin that could perhaps act as a native Web3 lay on to the platform, which is Mask. It might be Mask, it might not be. But what the Mask network does is it overlays features such as being able to buy crypto directly from Twitter, being able to engage with ITOs, which is initial Twitter offerings. It's got many other features of trading NFTs, stuff like that, right? I don't know whether it's going to be the Mask protocol. I don't know what it's going to be, but where we're sitting with the largest social media network at the moment could be the narrative required to bring the kind of early liquidity and dumb liquidity to at least get us back to where we moved off from. Now, I know people are talking about the macro. Guys, I'm not saying the macro is not in a bad standing. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that if liquidity is going to return back to the market in close to volumes that it did before, or at least, get over that amount, then yeah, I think firstly and foremost, the fact that we're sitting on the biggest social platform in the world, that's when CZ has invested in it, and it's very crypto-centric anyway. It's a no-brainer for me, that side of things. Secondarily, yeah, I mean, I remember when PayPal got involved in BTC, it was a green light. So we're looking for green lights. Yeah, we're looking for sentiment green lights, and there are still a few of them waiting, around the corner. Perhaps green lights from companies like Apple, perhaps green lights from companies like Microsoft. Certainly, we did talk about the infrastructure earlier on yesterday that investment banks, or at least that I've seen, investment banks are setting up within crypto, right? That's not a falsehood. There are many investment banks they're not investing too much in coins. They're either running hedge funds or investing in infrastructure protocols. But there's significant money there, and I think it's just waiting for a green light. Yeah, and it's more than obvious that NFTs could be integrated with live metaverse stuff. But the stuff we see at the moment is not good enough. It's not good enough right now. It's not addictive enough, or it's not interactive enough. And it's exactly what you just said. And there's no disagreements here. There will be another green light. It just depends where the green light is, where price is when that green light is given, and how we want to act on it. It would be advantageous if it was given at a lower price rather than a higher price. If it is at a higher price, then it will look suspect to me, thoroughly suspect, given where the chart is in general, and where the macro crypto chart is in general at the moment. So, yeah.
Yeah, speaking of institutions, there's one institution that we're all fans here because Bitcoin, and it's Jeff Winniger's Wisdom Tree. They're actually going to be releasing some ETFs, and some of the components within that ETF are going to be derived from the digital asset space. So the quote unquote institutions are coming, but of course, certain things need to be put in place as far as regulatory actions are concerned. Is that something that you're looking at as well? Any sort of regulations being put through in this market, or is that something more on like the back burner for the next cycle?
I'm not 100% sure about what regulations I think will be coming in. I'm not sure. I think it will be obvious that something will be introduced on the back of this whole Alameda, Solana shithole that everyone's been going through. But certainly, all I know is that if institutions have a presence, okay, they're building a presence now via infrastructure. Basically, red tape for retail would give them more advantages if it didn't apply for them, right? So I think it's as the space gets more and more liquidity, there'll need to be more and more rules about how certain players can act and how other players cannot act, right? In the traditional markets, even though sometimes there's quite a lot of conflict of interest, there are a lot more laws, at least that I know, around things like market makers and how exchanges are meant to interact with brokers and stuff like that. And I'm not an expert on this, so please, if anyone knows more specifics around this topic, I welcome them to come in and talk. But yeah, certainly crypto is unregulated as a whole, and I think there's a lot of space for that, and it will come in. In terms of cycles, I do think it will come in next cycle, just because of the amount of infrastructure that is being built at the moment. It doesn't make sense that it would be delayed into the future. And that is whatever direction whoever's building these, not whoever's building, whichever direction the hedge funds, the investment banks want to play the market, they're going to need regulation to do it anyway. So it's going to come in, and it will facilitate volatility whichever way it goes, I think. So, yeah.
All right, man. That's what I'm talking about. Well, guys, we're approaching that last quarter of the space. We're right here joined by Crypto Shadow, and he's giving us insights on his experiences of the market, anything from price action and more of the psychological and game theory side of things. If you guys enjoy spaces like this, be sure to follow the Because Bitcoin page. I do all of my crypto specific spaces there, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, but with some exceptions like today, given some time zone differences, I do host them a little bit earlier, a little bit later in the day. And I have pinned the Discord link to our group up on top on the nest. We just crossed 1,000 members, and it's a very vibrant community. We have individuals there from all across the globe, from both the equities and the crypto markets. So if you want to be engaged in a vibrant community that's up and coming, feel free to do so. You can find me in there at various points throughout the day. And if you're here in the crowd and you want to join the conversation, give some of your thoughts or ask some questions to myself or Shadow, feel free to do so. We'll be taking those for the next 10 to 15 minutes. So feel free to click that request button. I'll bring you right up. So Shadow, brother, talking about green lights, right? We talked about, green lights as far as upside is concerned. But if we kind of switch it around, right? How does that green light look at for yourself in the next top? Something that I myself and my community have been poising as far as the next top is sort of all right. If the last cycle top was broadcasted on national TV, right? Meaning, Elon Musk on SNL, the Super Bowl, right? Major League Baseball and NBA having their courts absolutely plastered with project logos and exchange logos, right? So the top was broadcasted across television sets. So what say you? What say you, sir, about the next top being broadcasted across the big screen like AMC theaters, right? And we're seeing this happen in the background, right? Coinbase and other exchanges are building media companies. They have partnerships with Yuga Labs, and they're trying to work on like an NFT multiverse movie. So you're gonna have like the crypto punks and the bored apes and all those blue chip collections, and kind of like this big movie that's like sort of the Avengers multiverse, right? But like the NFT side. Now that sounds extremely frothy, right? And me being a Disney adult, I am kind of excited for it, but at the same time, that sell button is looking kind of good as we get there. So what say you, sir, about that? Like, how does the next top look for you? Is that something that you can see happening in 2026?
Well, firstly, the Disney adult references are cracking me up. But they're completely true. They're completely true. I mean, how does the next top look for me? All right. Well, bear in mind, I don't have a telescope into the future. Um, every top, at least from my recognition, is broadcasted through various forms of euphoria, whether that be the Disney adult euphoria that you just highlighted just now, or whether that's the euphoria that is blatant, right? For example, if you look at the lost cycle, JP Morgan, right at the highs, released a statement. Bitcoin, 150,000 as the target. Other big firms release news articles, whether paid or not, who knows? But news articles will just sponsor what they say, and there's a major conflict of interest there. So you're looking out for a conflict of interest from people that do not have any benefit from sharing their exact move to you, right? Or their exact predictions. That's the first one. Always look for people that have a conflict of interest telling you perhaps what you want to hear at a certain price area. Secondarily, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the problem is with this whole space is that I'm sorry, it just runs on a greater fool paradigm theory. Okay, as much as it is revolutionary in terms of technology, I don't deny that. Even though I'm not a tech head, I don't deny that. But it can't sustain the values. So at some point, we just have to figure out where. At some point, there are a green light is going to be a top, right? Or one of the next green lights we see is going to be a top, and that will be tough to discern. But all I'm saying is, number one, I don't think the market has more than one cycle. I would be surprised if we get another full cycle. I think we can certainly get to let's say 63 again, not 63, sorry, around 60 again before we have to decide, maybe the mid 50s. If for example we enter into what people are saying echo bubble, whatever, right? If we retest the highs, and let's say we retest 47,000. This is the first thing, right? Let's say we retest the order block at 47,000. You really need to watch out for that Disney adult excitement. Yeah. If that starts to emerge at the retest of a previous high, you want to be out. You don't want to be in that game. Even if you feel like the narrative is strong enough to take you further to 150K plus. Guys, at some point the market is going to unfold. It's going to unfold. And what point it unfolds will be a synthesis of how many people there are left to sell to versus how strong the narrative is. And if at some point you decide that the game is already fully saturated and there is no one left to buy your tops, you need to get out. And we talk about game theory and stuff like that. That is down to your, I would say, subjective perception, but the signs will emerge at price premiums. Yeah, they always do. And it's your job, I think, just to figure out when it's happening. I don't know when it's going to happen. It may have already happened. I pretty much said the last cycle. I believe this is the last cycle ever. The reason why I've changed my idea a little bit is because of the new emerging narratives that we have surrounding everything we've been talking about in this conversation. But certainly, yeah, I think it's going to look like what you just said at a more severe level. It could be even children are getting involved, I don't know how that would happen, but it could be that gaming takes off at a later time, right? It could be that we get just a combination of absolute over-bobbling euphoria where even people you never thought were interested in finance or making money are now, dabbling in crypto. You need to look at the food chain and you need to figure out, okay, are the bottom of the food chain now getting involved? Because if they are, I need to get out. So there's no definitive answer right there, but certainly it will be clear as long as you know how to pay attention to conflict of interest, plus, signs that people get when they want something to go up. And so they're hoping it does through their commentary and posting.
Shadow, speaking of yourself with the view of the last cycle, wouldn't you say that greed as a whole would be indicative of crypto going on to make new highs? Meaning that what we saw during the last cycle is that people are now addicted to stimulus, right? So
Yeah.
if we do go into a quote unquote hard recession, right? And this is a complete knock on wood here, guys. What I'm about to say, only going based on what's happened recently. People are now addicted to free money, and it's not out of the question that there could be some sort of black swan to trigger that free money, whether it's stimulus checks or things like PPP or what have you, right? There's now an incentive for UBI to take place. Do you think greed as a whole, right? Going out of a recession, Fed printer is on like crazy. They're debasing the living fuck out of the US dollar and other currencies, right? Stimulus checks are introduced. Do you think crypto has that that biggest cycle ever on the plate, given that crypto has never ever experienced a recession, but at the same time, it's never experienced what comes out of a recession, and that includes rates getting slashed, QE going rampant, and now with the introduction of I wouldn't call it UBI, but people now know a taste of what it is to get free money. So that's another sort of like game theory aspect. But that combined with greed, you know, would you entertain that the next cycle is the not only the last cycle, but the biggest bubble in our lifetime when it pertains to the digital asset class?
So interesting, because I wasn't expecting the second part of that to be. Do you think it could be
Yeah,
the biggest bubble of our lifetime?
yeah.
It could definitely. Were you finished with your question, by the way? I
Yeah,
noticed that
yeah,
you
yeah.
still.
I was I was just engaging, brother.
Okay. Good, good,
Yeah.
good. So yeah, basically, I think you're completely right. So there's 2 points I want to make. First is that the population has got a taste of free money, and they will continue to get a taste of free money, at least if the world plans go ahead um, as they're meant to go ahead. I think that AI is going to allow people less time to work, and there's going to, as a result, have to be a change in the monetary system. If, for example, uh, something happens and the world is introduced to either number one, more stimulus, which is I don't know what else can happen right at this point. Number two, UBI. Where do people put their money? Well, you guessed it, right? They either put their money in fashion and stupid stuff to gain clout over their neighbors, or if it's free money, they just game it in the market, which we've seen evidence they want to do, especially if they're in a tough space. So it depends on how it unfolds. I believe that absolutely could happen. Absolutely, there is a even if UBI is not introduced, right? There is a very what's the right word? It's commonly understood that, oh, why would people put money into crypto if the whole world is losing value and things? Well, that really assumes that people are rational, okay, and that they make rational decisions with their money. That's not true. That's not true. And whilst you could say, oh well, people don't have money to earn, not earn, to spend on electricity. People don't have money to buy this and buy that. Well, people that do have a little bit of money, either if it's free or they're in a tight position and they've heard about this thing called crypto, there is a reality, number one, where it could act as a magnet for people just losing their money to the system. If that narrative goes wide enough and crypto is painted as a way out for most people, that could be an ending narrative that will completely decimate everyone because they would be the last in the liquidity line to be buying these assets, right? They would finally, all the people that have not paid attention to the market, they may think, oh, finally, I figured it out. This is a new asset class. Let me put my money in. Let's do it for the kids. Or, oh, I'm in a very bad space. Let me just invest money in an anti-inflationary mechanism. It's not anti-inflationary, but you know how people think, right? If there is a reality where that narrative can catch fire, number one, and number two, there is absolutely a reality where we can go into the biggest bubble you've ever expected. I often say two things will happen. Again, according to game theory, is that we either see underperformance or overperformance. Okay, and that's depending on obviously what narrative we have. But my two most likely situations at the moment are a very big cycle that emerges from now, or that we get that underside retest and range for a little bit, and then we have to kind of judge from there to see what tips us over the top. This is how I can answer the question. It's possible. I'm just waiting for either underperformance or overperformance at this time. And with the free money people are getting, I would just encourage people to not parrot what other people are saying. Yes, it doesn't make sense for people to put their money into a speculative asset. Okay, if they don't have much, but that's using the ration that exists today. If that ration starts to change on a global scale, then the asset class can definitely express the reflexivity that you have asked me about. Because markets, they don't always have to settle down; they can settle up, which is a lot of George Soros's methodology. When he talks about reflexivity, it's that bubbles can get a lot bigger than you could ever believe. And the fact that they start getting bigger after you thought it was going to get smaller can start churning more liquidity in and luring people in. That happens at a smaller pace during cycles. So, for example, the cycle from 3,000 up to 60,000, but it can happen again at a larger space. So, yeah, possible.
Yeah, and one last interesting game theory is that last cycle FTX was selling user assets to purchase Solana. So in a sense, you could say that a lot of the gains as far as like high caps are concerned, because I will definitely not be touching low caps in this conversation. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there is a case to be said that had that not happened, we would have seen the 100K BTC. We would have seen Ethereum close at 100K, right? Because the fact of the matter is, one of the biggest entities in the space, right, was largely in control of that occurring, right? And what we saw during the second half of 21 was that it was primarily derivatives that pushed up price. But ultimately, right, the market decides whether number go up or number go down. So it's a complete knock on wood and sort of speculation on my part. But given that, 2020 and 2021 had the easiest money conditions known to man in history, And if there was ever a cycle that Bitcoin could have hit that evaluation, that would have been it. But unfortunately, we had some bad players. So, it's just a matter of wait and see, and witnessing how hard crypto goes to the upside once we prop out of a recession. I'm not worried. I don't think people should be worried about, how we're doing during a recession. It's what comes out of it, right? Because we want that massive V-shaped recovery, right? We don't want that slow and grind. If we take a look at the price action in 2020 in April, right when the stimulus checks were being handed out, boy, we propped right out of 5K, 6K, straight back to 10K, 11K, 12K. So, that's something that I'm personally excited about, man. I still have faith for one more cycle, Shadow. One more
Yeah.
cycle, brother. One more cycle. Let's
We
go.
can we can hope, brother. I mean, honestly, the any capital, I've been very vocal about having started to commit capital a few months back and continue to commit small amounts. I'm actually doing so. I'm hedging my own original opinion. So now it's starting to not be classified as a hedge, if I may say so. But I honestly, bro, I thought the last top was the end of crypto, and we need a green light from something or somewhere to come in. I can see it forming right now in the form of Twitter, and that I think that green light can get us at least back up to 45,000 if it's going to follow through. I'm hoping with you, because if so, we're going to make quite a lot of money. Especially if it goes back to past all-time high. I'm just not feeling confident, and really just because from a principle standpoint, I just look at everything through simplistic lenses. This can be my downfall at times, but to execute, right? I think some people are too smart to be simple. They're too smart to be simple. I look around me and I say, all right, who in this room has not yet bought crypto? And I look around at the different types of personalities, and if the room is saturated, I ask who left is there. And last cycle, we didn't really feel like there were many people left, but it feels like if we do get into metaverse and gaming and NFTs, the whole gaming society, if we bring the whole gaming society on, you probably have enough to bring us back up. So I'm with you to a certain extent. I think the chances for me are getting more and more. And when you look at traditionals, man, I mean, yeah, what can we do other than commit capital, and accept the risk at the end of the day? Nothing is ever going to be perfect. These decisions we make, they're always with risk. I mean, if you were risking back at the COVID lows, all right, well, some people may have been convinced we were going up to 63, others were not. Same at November, December 2018, when we're down 3,000 after death, consolidating for God knows how many months. I remember sitting through that thing, and then we just dumped. We monthly closed with no recognition that we're going to go up. Nothing, price was a lagging indicator at that point, and then we just pumped into infinity. And then conditions every time don't look good. So what else can we do other than just risk, right? At the end of the day, find a thesis, stick to the thesis, execute with a fair amount of discount, and just do what we do best, which is to speculate. There's nothing else possible. So I agree with you not to worry about things too much. It's best to just execute.
All right, man. And on that note, I think we'll end it off on that high note, dude. I think that was a pretty epic conclusion. So with that said, brother, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your night, because I know you're in Dubai. And yeah, dude, thank you so much for coming on and introducing yourself to the Because Bitcoin community, man. Is there anywhere we can follow you outside of Twitter? Do you have a YouTube or something?
Honestly, firstly, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. Appreciate everyone that takes the time to just sit in and listen, whether you agree, whether you disagree, whether you like or dislike. Thank you for taking that time. Really appreciate that. Really, my main channels are Twitter. So twitter.com/cryptoshadowoff for official. I've got a YouTube channel, which is semi-active. It's going to be more active as the time goes on. And the YouTube channel is the network that I am building / own, which is youtube.com/tier7 trading. I think that's the 1 second. I think that's the URL. Yeah, you can just search for me on YouTube with just type in tier 7 trading, tier 7 network. And then on Twitter, I'm also building a NFT project, which is 999 supply NFT project, which is NFTs that will act as a pass to a network that we're building for the times to come. So the network we're building for the times to come are to deal with the ascent of AI. They are to deal with the changing world stance on money, and they are to deal with what we believe if it's going to be a crypto bull market coming soon. We're now casting our tendrils wide. We're trying to build a solid, powerful network so that we can leverage opportunities before they come, while they're there, and really just combine minds in order to increase firepower and leverage, right? So they're the three things I want to share. That's my Twitter, that's the NFT project we're doing, and that's the YouTube channel.
Perfect, man. Perfect. Guys, if you enjoyed this conversation and, if you joined it late or you've been hopping in and out of the space, you can catch a replay on the Because Bitcoin YouTube channel. If you want a link to that, just click on the Because Bitcoin Twitter. Follow the links on the website, and you should find the YouTube there. And just click on the playlists. And right where it says Crypto World Radio, just check for the latest upload. It should be there on the channel 5 to 10 minutes after the space is concluded. And guys, I want to thank you for participating. It means the world to me. I started this a few weeks ago because Bitcoin, and it means a lot that you guys have been giving me consistent feedback and showing up in all sorts of odd times in the day. I know a lot of our audience is halfway across the pond, so I want to thank you guys. And look forward to more content like this. And if you find it valuable, feel free to leave some feedback on the YouTube channel. And click that subscribe button, turn on bell notifications. There's a crypto shadow here on.
I'm not sure if anyone can hear me right now, but I think I've either cut out or King's cut out. Either way, thank you for having me on, and yeah, I've enjoyed it today.
Hey, Shadow, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Yeah, I don't know if it was me or you that
Man,
cut out.
I was giving my
Well,
concluded statement, dude. What was the last thing that you heard?
no, oh, that sucks. I heard that you were saying I'm very appreciative of X, Y, Z, and then I was anticipating what you were going to say, and you turned into a robot,
Ah,
so couldn't hear it, man.
man. Oh gosh. Uh, okay. I'll wrap it up pretty quick. Guys, if
Oh,
you
good.
if you like this conversation, you can check out the replay on the Because Bitcoin YouTube. if you like spaces like these and you enjoy this content, feel free to follow the Because Bitcoin Twitter page and turn on bell notifications so that you be made awares of whenever we go live. We have various spaces throughout the day. We have Market Talk at 4:15 Eastern Time, and then myself at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. But sometimes when I do have special guest speakers like Shadow, it tends to be a bit later, a bit earlier, but you will be notified in advance. And that's why I encourage you guys to turn on bell notifications for the Because Bitcoin Twitter page, because there is a major time zone differences between myself and some of our guests. And, I like to go out of my way so I can provide you guys with valuable content and interact with individuals that could provide value for you guys. And I want to thank you guys for supporting me and showing up to these spaces since I started this a few weeks back with Because Bitcoin. And I look forward to seeing you guys next year and seeing what we can do in the space and impact with value. And yeah, feel free to follow also Crypto Shadow, individual that provides some good signal and some great alpha. And thank you, Shadow, once again. And shout out to some of our Because Bitcoin Chads, Kimchi and TB523. Thank you guys for coming up and supporting and showing love to your boy by being participants and in the listener panel. And thank you once again to Crypto Shadow. Thank you so much. And I look forward to connecting with you even more as time goes on, man. Thank you so much. And God bless you. God bless you and your community. And for everyone here listening, God bless you too. Have a great New Year's. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. God bless you. God bless everyone too. And Happy New Year, guys. Yeah. Cheers for coming in to share energy, share love, share attention, and everything else. God bless.
The trading current is just math. It's just math. It has a 95.45% hit rate when we deviate outside of CP2 and CN2. All you had to do is recognize that 95% of the time when we get over here, under this blue line, we get some sort of mean reversion. So let's just assume you long right here. 95 out of 100 times, when I buy this, I'm gonna get some sort of bounce. It's just math. Look what would have happened as we move up. Look at the bounce that came after. And now look where we are. If you had just blindly followed the current, you take all emotions out of it, you say, I'm going to trust the statisticians. You would have bought Dow Jones somewhere down here under 30,000, depending on how you want to measure it from absolute top to bottom, 20% move. We also have multi-time frame alerts. You don't even have to be at your computer on TradingView. You can ping your phone. Now the current has some really awesome features, and I would urge you guys to join our Discord to get access to it. We give it away for free as a tool to the community. It's just math. There's really no need to overcomplicate things, not even in the slightest.